this isn't a topic we could have discussed 5 years' time, but there's been so much work and effort and development and intellectual capacity that's gone into the space that here we are today talking about layer 3s and Appchains and much more specialized things beyond just the layer 1 and the Bitcoin and the smart contract platforms that we started years ago. I think this is also a sign that the product market fit is there. I have a great set of guests today to actually discuss about where we're heading with this technology, where we are, what are the challenges. So maybe before we dive in, maybe you guys can give a very brief intro to who you are and what you're building.
Sure, thank you. My name is Gluchowski. I'm co-founder of Matter Labs, the company behind zkSync. We're building we just launched the first zk VM on Ethereum mainnet. It's going to be released gradually to the users, and as a next step, we're going to be launching Layer 3s, which we believe is the end game for blockchain scalability, and also for application-specific chains.
My name is Shevchenko. Hopefully you did not forget me from the previous talk. I'm the CEO of Aurora Labs, the company that is building Aurora.
Thank you. I'm Thibaut. I'm a software developer at ChainSafe. ChainSafe is building a lot of alternative clients for layer 1, for instance, Layer 2 client, consensus client for in TypeScript. We're building also Polkadot implementation in Go. We're building a Rust implementation of Litecoin. We used to work on Mina as well, Rust. Anyway, we're chain agnostic, but involved in one of the chains.
Hi, my name is Kumar. I come from AltLayer, and we are building a decentralized and open kind of execution hub that allows people to request different types of execution engines and environments that they need.
Hello everyone, I'm Evgeny, co-founder of Fluence. At Fluence we are working on decentralized computing platform, which basically like the off-chain infrastructure for developers that the goal is to replace the proprietary clouds, which is more kind of on the application level in the discussion when we talk about Appchains and rollups and stuff like that. So we basically think of this infrastructure as where we put our economics, actually put all the payments economics, like proofs and stuff like that. Is on-chain, but the computation we're talking about is happening purely on-chain.
Some of our audience might not be familiar with terms like Appchain and Layer 3, so I thought maybe one of you guys might try and explain in very simple terms what do we actually mean, so we can actually set like a baseline of knowledge. Who would like to have a go at that?
I can start with a quick, which I feel is a semantic or recursive definition of L3s, for example. So L3 essentially is to L2 what L2 is to L1. Right? So that's one way of sort of recursively defining what L3 is. But having said that, a pure definition is still not quite established in a clear sense of it. Well, app chains are basically anything that is designed, a layer which can be sovereign or otherwise, depending on other central hubs. But basically a chain that is designed for a certain application.
And I would like to add to this that in order to qualify as Layer 2 or Layer 3, the most important condition is that these chains are deriving their security properties from the underlying systems. So if we're talking about Layer 2, Layer 3 on Ethereum, and all the way up from Ethereum, the security propagates and all the validators of Ethereum basically verify or test the security of all the higher layers.
And what does this landscape look like right now? Where are we with zk technology, and where are we at with Appchain technology, and how early in the adoption cycle are we?
To the best of my knowledge, we don't have any layer 3 cycle yet. Maybe let's start that. Maybe probably not, but we have some application-specific chains that are independent sovereign chains, where they do not derive security from underlying systems, and that puts them in a very different landscape, a very different position. Like You can totally use them for some scenarios, but it's not what I would consider part of the internet of some blockchain.
Anyone else want to add anything to that?
I would like to add an additional kind of perspective on the security aspect. So if we have a very interesting situation in the market of validators at the moment. So for all of the chains, you need to have these validators, and the market of professional validators emerged. And it means that these companies that are doing the professional validation, they actually validating multiple different blockchains. Everstake is validating Near, Solana, Polygon, whatever. They have tons of this stuff. Similar situation is in the Cosmos space. Right? The same validators are validating different Cosmos chains. So when we're talking about security, I just wanted to mention that there is this very interesting particular thing about this for stake networks. This interesting thing that in case we're thinking of catastrophic events when these validators are trying to submit incorrect blocks, then this actually destroys their reputation not only on the single chain but on all of these chains, right? So it means that the security of the chains are somewhat interconnected actually and shared already because of the social thing and because of the social reputation. So it just means that for the new chains that are going to emerge, their security actually is going to be higher than we might think of just the bare numbers. So the inheritance of security is super important. Yes, I'm with this stuff. I just wanted to point out that there's this kind of interesting non-technical thing that is happening in the world right now.
Just like to add something regarding Appchains. So this is something that I feel we were talking more about in the past months, since I would say maybe more about it than Cosmos launch. But I feel this is something that is actually very old. A very good example is CryptoKitties. Exactly, actually almost 5 years ago now, it was bringing troubles to the Ethereum blockchain because it was basically filling the blocks. And Dapper Labs, who was building CryptoKitties, thought, okay, you know what, we can't find the throughput that we need with Ethereum, so we're going to build our own blockchain, which is called Flow. And this blockchain will be actually dedicated to games, and it will have primitives that allows people to build games and on top of the blockchain and make it faster. And this is to me a Appchain because it is a blockchain that has very specific assets to maximize the effectiveness of some specific applications. And right now, in the past months or maybe years, we've been talking about Appchain more related to what Alex meant regarding a kind of shared security, or at least in the Cosmos or Polkadot ecosystem, the idea that you can interact between blockchains that are shards of the same protocol or the same ecosystem, and thanks to IBC or SCM, allowing those blockchains to interact really seamlessly. And that's what I want to say about Appchain.
I wanted to add one more point to this. I think you have to consider the alternative, which is, as you have Appchain, you can consider it applications as rollups, but beyond that you have this general purpose layer 1s or layer 2s, like Ethereum, for example. And apart from scalability that was mentioned earlier, there is this idea that for certain types of use cases and applications, you may want to customize your chain for your needs, right? So for example, you may not like, for whatever reasons, the underlying gas metering system that another one may provide you, right? So you may want to have your own mechanism to meter the gas. You may want to adjust your, let's say, block gas limit or whatever, right? You may want to design your, customize your chain that fits or suits your needs, right? And for example, games are probably one of the biggest users of app chains or app-specific rollups and stuff.
So just a small point to add to everything. So basically, as a I'm looking at all of this infrastructure from the application developer perspective, and like in our case, we're trying to build the system where potentially millions and millions of developers are going to use our product the same way as they use the cloud. So and usually when they build, they pay for like renting some compute capacity from the cloud. It could be like very small checks, could be like higher checks, but definitely they don't want to think about transaction fees and like network congestions and stuff like that. That's why basically like as a typical application that may have like millions of users in the future, we have this choice between, okay, should we build on the Appchain, or should we build on some rollup that potentially allow us to scale with the low fees? But the like important difference here is in case of building Appchain, like it's kind of like different assumptions of and trade-offs. In terms of Appchains, we'll have to deal with these network validators, which might or might not be concern for some people, because like sometimes it leads to just kind of centralization of power. Sometimes it leads to additional efforts in terms of like when you starting your new network. Like you just want to work on the application, but you need to start the network. You need to talk to all these validators. You need to like do all of these efforts. And from like on the other perspective, there's potentially rollups that allow you to just like deploy the code and it magically works because like it's provided for you. But it's just not there yet. Like this in the desirable future, it's all gonna just magically works. But right now it's just like we have to do all these trade-offs. We have to combine several approaches at the moment if we want to run a product today and not like we want to run years.
So if we had to predict like in 10 years time how adoption has progressed, would you guys say like zk will probably dominate and Appchain will have a more niche, or are you saying maybe there might be gaming applications that are so huge and built on these specialized Appchains that it's just too hard to predict? Or how do you guys think it will play out in the future?
So from my point of view, zk technology is absolutely a marvelous piece. It needs to mature. In 5 years, zk is going to be the dominant technology for building any chains. But from the other standpoint, if we take a look at coin market cap, at the first 30 coins there are two types of the coins there. One is a stable coin, and the second one is a separate layer 1 with a token that is used for the transaction fees. So I do believe that the future, the development of zk technologies is not actually excluding the need of many different chains. People are going to continuously do it. It's just because of the fact that investors are thinking that if in case they are investing in the infrastructure layer, right, then this state is better. This is a status quo at the moment. I do believe that it's going to continue like that.
I wanted to sort of add that Appchain may not be for everyone. Right? You may not have the transaction needs. The number of volume that you're driving through your application may not require a dedicated block space just for yourself. Right? There could be, for example, something in the middle between general purpose chains and Appchains, which could be something like sector specific or vertical specific networks, where you have something like here is a game chain, here is a DeFi chain, and it could be possible where some of these games might go centered around one sector specific chain. It could also be possible where most applications will start off on a general purpose chain. Once they feel like they have gotten enough user base, they have enough DAUs, then they would want to have their own dedicated block space that would come from an application specific chain or that kind of.
I'd like to add that just like in the beginning of in the early days of internet, there were this different path that people foresaw it can go, whether like one global internet will emerge or there will be like separate intranets, and all those intranets could use different technologies. Not all of them were IP-based, etc., etc. What we see as an evolution that crystallized, what really worked was everyone adopted the single most efficient common technology, which is the IP protocol and what was built on top of the IP stack. And then you still have something like private networks, intranets, but they are just like firewalled versions of the internet that still use the same protocol, the same capability. And I think technologically that is what's going to happen. That all the chains that have value for whatever reasons, can be for technological reasons or maybe for non-technological reasons. Maybe there are communities built on those first or third chains. And those communities are powerful and they create value because of this magnetic potential, some values, etc. But in order to survive, they will have to adopt the most efficient, the most secure technology that protects you, like that maintains the values. I believe, from what I know today, it is definitely going to be secure.
I'm not 100% agreeing with this in the sense that sometimes history has shown that it's not because you have the best tech or the most efficient that this is actually what gets used. And this is something I would like actually as a developer, obviously, that technology would win and drive adoption. But very often we've seen in the past that not the most decentralized or not the most efficient chain actually get the most traction. Maybe because they have the best UX, or maybe because they have, they're doing some trade-offs that users don't eventually see and still, go for this chain. I'm not going to name names, but I hope that in 10 years from now, so just to go back to the question, 10 years is a long time, right? In Web3 it's 100 years probably, and I believe that as Appchain mentioned before, there will be just bridges absolutely everywhere. I really hope that those bridges will be trustless and will allow, at least the biggest hacks not to happen on their layers. I do believe that, as was said before, some chain or some application will start first as on general purpose blockchains, and eventually this is probably something we will talk about, but building on an Appchain is not something, or building your own blockchain is not something that's easy, and it takes actually a lot of time. And this is, this is again a trade-off that people will need to take. I do believe that we have a lot of simple, or say, Appchain right now that will die. There's a concept that I really like, which is called block space. And the concept of block space is thinking about, block should be full all the time, if it was possible to, have all these, say, applications or all the smart contracts sending events, etc., in the most efficient manner, so that every block is full, every block on every blockchain is full all the time. And you have many blockchains that all use too much today, and still everyone is paying for validation because every block is produced every seconds, and the users are effectively paying for this. All the blocks are not full and not used at all. So I hope that we just make this more effective in the future, and that whatever protocol is used in 10 years, at least it's efficient and we don't have like hundreds of blockchain actually running and with blocks that are half full.
Yeah, so I definitely don't know what's the future going to be, but I think one important thing to think about is that users tend to stick with like the wallet, right? Like the wallet is the enabler to like different chains and features and applications that users use. And if we say that the future is multi-chain, there's going to be a lot of Appchains, and they all going to be kind of force users to use different wallets, or like to basically be built on different technologies. It means we will keep having all these interoperability problems that we have today. From this perspective, like today, it's possible to build the multi-chain application, which will not force user to install two wallets, like can use only like MetaMask, and I can build at the same time and on Ethereum Layer 1 and on Near via Aurora, for example, or I have the alternative way I can use Ethereum Layer 1 and then I can use zkSync and the user will still use the same wallet. But I think that if we think that we will force and we will, be able to incentivize users to use several wallets at the same time, it's just not going to happen. We either need to figure out how to abstract out chains under the hood of the wallets, or we will be at the EVM or maybe something coming after EVM, but the majority of users is going to be, because of network effects, going to be kept on single wallet infrastructure.
So hypothetically, if adoption isn't where we want it to be in 5 years' time in either zk or Layer 3 or Appchains, why do you think that might have happened? Or maybe another way to phrase the question is what are the risks to adoption? Can you talk? You touched on Alex on some of these risks, but what are some of the barriers that we're going to face before we can have adoption into the billions of users?
I think those are the usual the challenges that are not specific to Layer 3's Appchains, but in general to blockchains. We need to solve the UX problem, we need to solve security, we need to solve trust, we need to solve regulatory impedance, pushback, find ways to integrate it in existing systems. But all of this is happening. With specific to zk technology, I think creating trust through demonstrating security and reliability of the systems is crucial. Is what we should be focusing on. Where we can fail, and if we fail, if there's a big problem in any of the chains, it might push us back somewhat. It will not stop the adoption. If you think of the early days of aviation, the early crashes of airplanes did not stop the adoption of airplanes, but they probably definitely contributed to less willingness of people to fly. So we should be taking things slowly, surely towards this bright future.
I think one problem that we're facing beyond user experience is today, if you want to use any application whatsoever today, you need to go and watch a 30-minute tutorial video on YouTube to understand how the whole thing works, right? And that's painful. When I go and download a new app on my app store, Web2 app, I don't read anything. I just go and use it, right? And that's the first aspect, which is there's a lot of learning that is forced onto users. It's not even about UI, UX, it's about, go and learn about how consensus protocol works, go and learn about gas fee, go and learn about things like that. I think that has to go away. That has to go behind the scenes in a way where today, as many people say, right, if you go and host a website, you don't care about whether it's posted on your or somewhere else, you don't care. And certainly you don't have to be forced to go and watch your favorite influencers video to understand how your favorite Uniswap or Aave or something else works for you.
Specific chains that are extremely aggressive in their marketing, right? I really hate these chains. I'm just saying it out loud, right? This is a really big risk. Why? Because we already not the only ones who are talking about security and privacy. Take a look at what Apple is doing right now. They never ever have had billboards, right? And now on the billboards with Apple advertisements, you are able to see a person who is just holding an iPhone in front of his face and closing his face, and this is how they are conveying to their users that there is a privacy inside of iPhones. That's what they are doing, right? And no single chain is able to fight with Apple at the moment. And in case we would not unite as blockchain community, in case we would stop shitting on others, in case we would not be able to do a targeted laser-focused strike on the Web 2. They're just going to use all of our ideas right away, pack it in the way that the users are okay to consume. It is not overload in their brains, and that's it. And we are just going to be used material, and we are going to go through it. So So from my standpoint, it's super important for all of us to collaborate and move forward.
That's very wise words. I totally agree, and would like to reinforce it. I guess, unfortunately, this is a very human behavior to think, okay, I can do actually better and roll my own blockchain. Yeah, this is also, I would say, probably inherent to capitalism and the fact that when you can launch your own blockchain with your own token and be richer, let's say. I guess this is a big break into more collaboration, and something that Evgeny said before that I really believe is super important is the fact that we are very much using different wallets depending on what application we're using, and this is, as someone who really likes UX, this is something I think is an enormous problem. We're all talking about how MetaMask is so slow to get better and has a bad UX. We are all using MetaMask. There are other alternatives. We're not using them. So I think there is a huge inertia in this kind of behaviors, and I am very close to many wallet developers that tell me, look, it's not because we're so much better than MetaMask that actually people use us, because there's the first mover advantage. There's this tutorial you just mentioned that you're probably looking at for using Uniswap. What is this tutorial talking about? Probably MetaMask, because they just want to focus on how to use Uniswap. And so I think this will take a lot of time to unify around maybe a couple, maybe zk rollups, a couple Appchain, and maybe this is always the thing that people are asking, what is the killer application? Maybe there will be one killer application that actually just brings everyone around an ecosystem and we try to unify it.
Just a small addition. So I think that one of the risks we have here is just inefficiency of all the decentralization, right? Like we are trying to to move and to build in a way that is different from how big corporations were built. So we are trying to create decentralized ecosystem. We are trying to spread the power to entities, and this leads to inefficiency of how fast it goes, how fast every ecosystem innovates. So and on the other side, there are some projects or some chains that Alex in particular hates that operated by very centralized organizations that can perform very fast, that can apply all this experience of building companies and corporations in a kind of closed manner, so they can build stuff faster compared to open ecosystem where you have this creativity and openness and anyone can contribute, because these things, open ecosystem requires a lot of trade-offs on the communication. So and this just sometimes it slows things down, but sometimes it just allows some untrivial innovation to be born. So we are playing the field that's different than the field that was 20 years ago when all this Google, Facebook and stuff were built.
I just want to add very shortly that I fully share the sentiment towards the chains that are using aggressive, very honest market tricks to advance. But I also feel very confident that at the end, what will win and prevail are the values. And I don't worry about those chains. They will be building some stuff fast, and they will be catering to some corporations, will be treating some industry to it. But if blockchain could survive in a centralized environment, if it could be valuable without decentralization, without it has cost, it has huge overhead. If it was possible, it would have already been done. We would not have needed Bitcoin or Ethereum for this. So this overhead, or rather the cost, the willingness to pay this cost, is justified by the value that decentralization, true decentralization, gives you. And either you are aligned with the values, and then I'm fine. Like, I don't care who will win eventually, like which technology, which approach. I want the mission. I want our mission to succeed, and our mission is just promoting, accelerating the adoption of blockchains for personal sovereignty. And if those not so honest actors move ahead, like they will not be able to provide this value. So I bother.
I agree with you in general. The problem is like crypto idea, or the whole crypto idea, right? Is that I own my digital value, right? It's mine, not the platform where I created it or used or transacted it. And the problem with all the centralized chains is basically they own my my digital items, my digital value instead of me. But if I don't understand it, I don't know. Like if I'm uneducated massive user, I cannot really distinguish between like that. Do I own it or do they own it? Like what they can do to me in order to, you know, cut the access for myself from this value. So, and this is definitely like something related to like market education and like long-term our collaborative effort in terms of like sharing the vision of the Web3 and it feels like it resonates with humanity so far. So we're doing good work, but that's still a risk. I just want to say that it's a risk.
I agree, but they are going to be competing with Revoluts and Coinbases in this world, not with us. And those already exist and they do the same thing. Like users kind of own crypto, but then not really, right? So, or identity or whatever it is.
So usually when talking about the decentralized technologies, the elephant in the room is regulation, right? Laws, and I just wanted to ask, what is the impact of regulations when it comes to these technologies? Because we know DYDX just moved on to their own kind of technology. Some say it's because they want to have better control of the validator set. We know what's happened with Tornado Cash, so it's not like we have a free open checkbook to do exactly what we want. So what do you guys think around the question of regulation on these technologies that we're building?
I can start. I feel very confident that we will move on as planned because we are, like as infrastructure layers, we're not going to be massively affected just through the same protection that internet providers enjoy and the infrastructure providers for the internet. And you have some advanced, you have some privacy tools on the internet, such as SSL, HTTPS. They are necessary for functioning of internet, for being able to access your banks, your accounts in a secure way. They cannot be regulated away. You cannot just say like everyone has to be free and transparent because if you have multiple countries, you cannot like have people like or authorities from Iran be able to see every packet on the internet, what's going on there. So it's infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, I echo views here. And if you look at the last, let's say, few years of how regulations have intervened in the crypto space, they have been at the platform level infrastructure only for fundraising. Right? You know, people with ICOs, they were given some sort of slap on the wrist or whatever you call it by SEC. The major sort of regulatory intervention that came in was at the application layer, via Tornado Cash. So if you build platforms and infrastructure that are decentralized in nature, the only way anyone could come in is by attacking let's say, the application layer in some way. Right? But infrastructure will still be safe in many ways. But again, they will have to find a way in which you could prevent the same thing at the application layer as well.
I mean, if you want someone like NASDAQ to come and build on blockchain technology, I mean, would they want to be building on a layer 3 where they don't know, like maybe the validator sets in the layer 2 below that, or would they have to go for their own app chain just because they control the variables in there?
I don't know. I mean, talking about DYDX, I think of course there's one reason is regulation, but there are other economic aspects of move from DYDX starting to this as well. So in some cases they would love to have their own infrastructure that they control, and in some cases they may want to sort of report that and be compliant to regulation. But there would be open, decentralized infrastructures that as was previously mentioned, people who believe in those values will build on those chains because a large network of people have come towards Bitcoin, Ethereum because of those core values.
I wanted to add here that the regulation in general is something that is going to move probably pretty slowly, but in the end it is going to be there. Want to throw in the audience one simple fact. Women were allowed to take part in the elections in Switzerland, one of the most prominent countries in the world, only in 80s. Right? And regulators can be really slow, but there are other ways how we can boost the adoption and push regulators, right? And there are already some projects that start to appear in the blockchain ecosystem that are actually solving the regulatory problem, right? What is the problem there? The regulatory landscape is not clear, and because of this, big players are not able to come in the blockchain play, right? In case there is a project that is actually solving this risk or is taking this risk and providing the service to the institutions risk-free, then it is okay. And just to name here, there is this project. It is called Securitize. What they are doing, they are taking ERC20s. They are minting one-to-one other ERC20s. They are saying that these are securities. They are registering these tokens with all of the authorities. They are doing KYC on their clients, and they are selling these tokens just one-to-one, right? Well, like 15-20% higher on the market. And it works. Because these people are accredited investors, they do not want to have the regulatory risk that something is not there. They are buying this risk from this company. And it works great. I want to see more projects like this that are solving the actual regulatory risks. And this would be something that is going to boost the adoption. Because the money that is earned here by securitized team is the money that is not transferred back to the government. And because of this, they are going to see the competition, and they would like actually to provide proper regulation.
And something else I wanted to touch on was one of the game changers that smart contract platforms and Ethereum brought was this idea of composability, where people could deploy different things and these things could interact with each other and leverage each other, and it was like there were synergies there in that cliche term. And when we move on to layer 3, is that broken? Are we going to have to rely on bridge technology to improve a lot, or how do we actually keep that benefit when we're moving into these more specialized solutions?
I do believe that bridges will exist, and I think there was this meme on the slide earlier. I think that's still true. But bridges will look differently compared to what you see today, right? So, for example, today, if you look at, you have the wrapped USDT on let's say Polygon. You also have wrapped USDT, native USDT on the same chain, and then you could. That creates lots of issues. So there will be better bridges that are abstracted away from end users, and you don't have to switch networks and move assets from one chain and go to the other one. There will be better bridges that will be abstracted away from users. I think that's absolutely needed.
This is a very interesting question, and there are a few points to expand here. So first of all, inside Appchains, the composability will work probably exactly the same way as it works now. Layer 1s. Any contract can talk to any other contract atomically and synchronously within a simple transaction. So that is simple. The interesting question is how composability works across different app chains or L3s. And I agree that the bridges will massively change, and they're going to be brought to a next level. What I mean by this, the bridges between layer 3s can be built completely trustlessly and completely reliably. So you can send a message and be sure that the message will eventually reach the destination, will contain the exact value, exact assets that you attached to it, and you will get a synchronous response. So there will be composability, but it will be asynchronous. And the way, like, the reason why it will be possible, like, to do it like basically like the same way as it's now on the one, just asynchronous, but having all the same properties, is that what we call bridges today is actually not bridges. This is a very flawed metaphor, a very, very flawed term that we're using. Because bridges imply that you have, you know, like islands, like some pieces of land separated by some waters or whatever, and you have digital assets and then, like, you can imagine them, like you have like some physical assets on those islands, and you can transport them over the bridge. This is not how any of the existing bridges today work, except the native bridges for layer 2s, but those are not bridges, but just like the base contracts. How the bridges work is, you have those islands, you have digital assets, like imagine you have gold on one island, you cannot move it over the water. You have to park it in some place. Essentially, like you drive a car, you have to park it on the parking spot on one island, and then you wave a flag to someone on the other island, and then they give you the car on that side, and then you can drive the other car, which has to be created either from scratch or like borrowed from someone or something like this. But the assets on the other side remain there, and they have to be secured by some mechanisms that cannot be reliably made fully trustless. Like, you still rely on something like even if you can verify, if you have a zk chain, zk bridge between two different chains, and you verify all the transactions between like you can verify like two different zk chains fully succinctly within this bridge. You still have the last line of like subjectivity, where you don't know if you're on the canonical fork of that chain or not. Because if that community wants to fork away, the bridge will have no way to determine like which is the canonical version. So you always rely on some trust. But within the layer 3 paradigm, we can make completely transparent chains, bridges that work as bridges. You take assets on one side, they magically disappear there, and they appear on the other side. That is how bridges should work, and this is what should be called bridges, and not what actually.
I really like this metaphor of points, and this is something that some platforms are working on. Like, I'm thinking about the shared security, for instance, where you can actually have, say, a main island that keeps track of what all the assets on the smaller islands, and when one smaller island wants to have, say, an assets from the other, neighbor island moved, they just call the main island and say, hey, can I just borrow this one? And the main island will just keep track of where things flow. And if this, thanks to shared security again, which is something that Cosmos is willing to implement and that Polkadot has, allows to have I don't know if we should call this bridges, but at least it is permissionless. You don't have to trust basically both sides, which is really good. And I hope that, as you said, and as Arden said before regarding Connect, that all these bridges will be true bridges in the future and not notices or whatever, where you actually just have to trust not only the two chains but also the relayers in the middle.
And I just want to add one last thing. It's critical that those fully trustless bridges can only be built with zk technology for fundamental reasons. We don't have time to expand on them. I'm happy to take questions after the panel and show it on Blackboard or whatever. But you cannot do it with like optimistic verification. You cannot do it with consensus, validators, like reliance on trust. You really need to just be able to rely on math in order to like blindly trust that something like really happened on the other side of the bridge. This is the only way today that we realistically can build those trusted bridges.
I'm curious to look at these bridges when they build, because like it's about several things. It's about how fast can I transact, right? And the cost obviously, but like how fast is it? Because like current bridges, which are not bridges, takes too much time. Besides, I only know one from Ethereum Vision, which is also like work as a smart contract, which allows you to bridge fast. And I think regarding composability, we have this one problem of synthetic tokens, right? So like when we have some token on one chain, we're trying to send it to another chain where it does not exist. We need to create a synthetic token, then we send it to third chain, and then fourth chain, and then we send it back, and then we have like a whole bunch of, which I don't know if it's solvable in Appchain universe, but it feels like potentially solvable in zk universe. However, this is the stuff that just needs to be think about. I have no idea what's the right solution, but maybe you guys have any thoughts on it.
We run out of time for today. Thank you guys so much. It's really exciting to see all the progress that's been happening in the space and what you guys have been building. I'm sure in like 2-3 years time when we have a similar panel, it will be at such a more advanced stage. It's always nice to look back and get these discussions. So thank you again for your time, and thank you.
Thank you very much.